Huei-Yuan coming to you from Cupertino, California.
There's a
Today's
lot of serious to it, that first impression.
uh, August 3rd, 2020. Coming into you from Cupertino, California with my dear friend, Dr. Albert Nguyen. If you followed the podcast that I was doing a couple years ago, then you may have caught an episode with Albert. Albert is one of my favorite people in the world, and with the things that are going on, we recently caught up over Zoom. And Albert, do you want to just tell everyone kind of what we're trying here?
Uh, it's pretty simple. We're hanging out and we're talking about pre-selected topics to see if anyone wants to show up and join us. That's pretty much it. There's no rocket science to this one.
Yeah. One thing that is interesting about this, oh, and I realized that I did not change the title to the stream. So right now it looks like we're streaming with Brett Kuhn. Brett Kuhn is not here, everyone. If you're coming in from Brett Kuhn, uh, but one thing that is, I'm going to share this out to my page as we're talking about this, is that we did commit to doing these in a series, right? You know, like if you've ever tried to do something creative, it's very common to just do something, you do it for a little bit, and then either you don't get the results you want or you lose that spark of inspiration. But we've done enough creative things, I think, in our lives. Albert maybe will tell us a little bit about his current creative project that he's been working on for how many days now, Albert?
What is today? 216? Is that where we
Whoa!
are?
216 days in a row, which is no joke.
200. Yeah, I think it. Let me double check to make sure. Yeah, 200. I just posted 216.
Tell
Yeah.
everyone what you're talking about with the 216.
So I'm taking a picture every day, a black and white picture every day for a full year. So this year is a leap year picture instead of 365 or 6. I would consider myself an amateur photographer, and I was just wanting to um, put a challenge out there that would just, make me see things differently, quickly, forced practice, and experiment to see where it goes and how I evolve. So it's pretty much, yeah, and it's been interesting already. So
The
we can certainly
photos are
talk about
beautiful
that.
themselves, but also, you know, just seeing those posts come through, Albert, like to do anything for 216 days in a row is a feat in itself, other than, the things that you have to do, the things that you,
Yeah,
because I'm sure there are
that's
days where maybe you are less like, hey, I want to shoot today than others, but you still force yourself to show up and make it happen.
yeah. Well, I think that's the biggest lesson. Um, uh, it forces me to not be so judgy. When I'm like, okay, I'm going to take 366 of these, there are going to be some stinkers, pretty much. And like today was a hard one. Today, was busy and it was just Zoom Fest 2020. And then, Amy and I had to paint. This is like project number 5 since COVID.
Yeah.
We're working on the master bedroom now. And so like all of this stuff was going on. And then I got around, I guess it was around 9:30 Central or so. I was like, I haven't shot a picture yet. Oh shoot, what am I gonna do? And literally, so for like 10 minutes, I just wandered around the house looking for things to take a picture of. That's all I did. And sometimes that happens. And that's when like if you follow my photos, you'll know that because it's just an object,
Yeah.
and that's all it is. But even when I'm looking for the objects, or I'm looking for whatever it is that I'm looking for, if I've gone to the end of the day and nothing has happened, it's still pretty specific. I'm trying to find shape. I'm looking for something that provides a sense of contrast. I'm looking for something that might tell a story. I have 2 kids, so it's actually really easy. They provide a lot of material, but I realize that maybe I'm overworking that, working them too much. I need to expand. But yeah, it's just there generally is some kind of purpose, and big. I specifically chose black and white for this challenge because I wanted to pay attention more to shape contrast, period.
Mhm.
And so I tend to look at it that way. I tend to edit that way as well when I work on the photos in Lightroom. So it's cool. There was a point where I hated it. I was like, what did I do to myself? But the accountability of, when you say, and it was around 100, you know,
Yeah.
but you say it out loud. He was like 100 of 366.
Mm-hmm.
And so every single time you post, you're reminded of this contract that you made with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so every day, not only do I post, but every day I reaffirm this like contract. Um, yeah, it's crazy.
Well, man, I can't wait to see you when you cross the finish line. I know you've got plans, right? You're making me realize that we need to do one of the episodes about this. Maybe like we'll create a theme around this, and yours will be like this photography challenge that you've created for yourself. Our challenge for this project is not nearly as it's not 365 days of live streaming with each other. Although that would, I'm sure our wives would be like, "What are you
No.
guys doing again?" This current challenge will be
What
6 episodes.
what kind of relationship is this?
Jokingly, okay, so there was our crew that we would hang out together in when I was in my undergrad and Albert was doing his master's. And looking back at these photos now, and this is years later, everybody was in a couple, and Albert and I were both, the two lone guys in the photo. So it'd be like pair, pair, pair. And so 10 years later, I was looking at these photos in one of our group chats. I was like, hey, how come no one told us that Albert and I were the like cute Asian couple of our group? We didn't realize this
Right.
until after.
That was it. Oh
Well, hey,
gosh.
if you're coming to the room just now, my name is Huei-Yuan. This is my dear friend Dr. Albert Nguyen. We're hanging out. We're having a little mini chat. We set the clock at 23 minutes left. We're going to go for 30 minutes. We're doing 6 of these once a week on. Is this going to be the regular time and the regular day?
Sure.
Okay. All right. For the next 6 weeks,
Sounds great.
Monday evenings, and this is well, it's going to be a little bit earlier. I botched the time today a little bit, admittedly, and thanks again, Albert,
No,
for being nice about it.
we're all good.
We'll post the time later up here in a little bit, but and then if you're watching right now and you want to drop us a comment and say what's up, hey Nick, thanks for coming. And we have Nick coming in, dropping a comment, says he
Hey
come
Nick.
on in our video. Nick's a tenor quad drummer, so he's coming in and checking out the hang. Um, and then just let us know where you're watching from, or if you are watching, you can say hi. Even if you're catching this on the replay, we'll see those hellos after the fact. And if you're watching live, you can let us know what's up. So, Albert, what's our topic today? And we're doing some technology things. Sorry to interrupt, but before I've stopped talking, um, there's a little bit of technology stuff that we're sorting out here, so there might be a little bit of lag. And this is experiment number 1 of 6. So, what is the task at
Yeah.
hand today, Albert?
Today, today we're talking about first impressions, man.
Yeah.
Uh, for our first impressions of each other.
Yep. I feel like this is a little unfair because I
Why?
sort of talked about this in the podcast episode, which I need to link down after this. We do this.
Oh,
I sort of talked about this, but I don't know what you're going to say here in a second. So I guess maybe you should go first, and then
yeah, I'm totally gonna go
depending on what you
first.
say about me, I'll either say nice or bad things afterwards.
Yeah. Okay. Easy.
All right.
Very, very, very easy. So first impression, I think people who know you, they know that to Texas as an undergrad. So my first impression of you was my master's degree and then your bachelor's at Texas. Um, so I have to preface this. Growing up in Arkansas, I was used to being the only Asian outside of my family, right? And so like outside of being around my family, if I went anywhere, I was the only one.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm just not used to being around other Asians, period. And so coming to Texas, it's like, whoa, there are a lot of Asians here. And wait, they all dress cool and they're all hip. Wow, this is awesome. They're not all dorky. Whatever that's supposed to mean, right? And then I remember meeting you, our mutual friend Ben introduces me to, and I think it might have been before like Longhorn section leader camp or something like that.
Okay.
And it was at a Longhorn band meeting. I remember that being
What
the
time of
case.
year are we talking about here? Do you remember?
Summer before the semester started, I think.
Summer, bro. Oh, because you. Oh, I see. Because timeline wise, I met you before we met because you had come into audition the previous semester, and I played in the ensemble while you were conducting. But you didn't know who I was
Well,
because I was just like percussion number four.
yeah.
But this is when
At
we're
that point,
meeting, and you're coming to school in the fall. Got it.
right,
Got it. Got it. Got it.
right.
Got it.
Coming to school in the fall,
Got it.
and my very first impression after being introduced and meeting you was like, this guy's got some serious like clothes game. That's insane.
I was getting nervous, man. I didn't know what you were gonna say. That was the build
I
up.
found out he worked at the Banana Republic, and like everything you wore was just so outstanding and so cool. And it's like, golly, he's like the coolest Asian I've ever met in my entire life.
I'm like an Asian
And you had
elf
the
that you're seeing for the
oh,
first time in your
dude,
life.
you like had the cool glasses and everything, and this country boy Asian was just kind of blown away. A lot of it had to do with sort of like a metropolitan sophistication that I felt like you had. Uh, and honestly, I mean, I'm being really honest here. You were so much older than your age, more mature. It was that's why it was so easy for me to connect with you.
Hmm.
You know, you weren't some punk little undergrad.
Hmm.
And I'd been teaching for a few years, and I wasn't expecting to be really close friends with many people who were younger than me. I just wasn't thinking about it that way.
Right.
It was just people who I was going to be around. I figured I'd be around graduate students or whatnot.
Right.
But I don't know, man. There was just like this insane confidence and sophistication that I thought was really, really great. So that was my first impression. It was like, damn, the boy can dress. That's crazy. I'm gonna have to up my game and not be the sloppy Asian. And but then after that, I was like, oh, he's an undergrad. Oh, wow. I mean, like again, I I don't know how undergrads are supposed to act, but in my mind at that point, you just seemed so much older and more mature. I thought that was really cool.
Well,
But
thanks, man. That's nice. That's
yeah,
nice of you to say
man. But
so.
I tell you, what made me realize that we were going to be really good friends was how you actually ask questions.
Hmm. How do I ask questions?
You know how people are like, people ask you how you're doing, and actually, I should be more specific. It's not how you ask questions. You ask questions and you actually wait for answers. Like you care. It's the when people say hi, they say, "How are you doing?" and they just keep walking.
Hmm.
Right? That's just turned into like a normal thing.
Hmm.
You, it's different. How are you doing? You stop
Hmm.
and you wait for an answer. Or like our friend Kristen, when we'd hang out at her place, and it's like this big dinner spread, dinner party or whatever, and she's in there chopping up stuff, and you go in the kitchen, you're like, so what's going on? What are you doing? How does it work? So what does that do? How what happens when you and I'm just like, you're a machine, man.
I usually you're like that guy's weird, man. He doesn't know how to do anything. He
Learning.
doesn't know how to chop. He
And so
doesn't know. How...
I guess that's where it is. I mean, you ask questions with the expectation to learn something instead of just ask questions with the expectation to answer.
Huh.
So I had a lot of respect, and I continue to,
Well, thanks,
which
man.
also makes you a really great interviewer, by the way.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, thanks. I don't think I've ever thought of it that way, but you know, I appreciate you telling me this because I haven't seen or thought of myself in that manner. But that example of asking Kristen, like I remember that happening as it was happening. Um, I hadn't started cooking yet at that point, and if you know Kristen, she's an amazing cook, like basically 5-star culinary chef, And at that time, she was, like dicing and chopping and crock potting and the whole deal. But for context, and thanks again for saying so many nice things, Albert. But for context, I had just the reason I was laughing was because I basically have dressed like a schlub for the last year and a half, if not 2 years. Only when I have to take meetings or I'm going somewhere. But literally, it's like the same T-shirt and jeans every day, especially since we've hit Zoomtopia land for the last 6 months. But at that time, I was probably student teaching, I guess, right? So I had, dressed fine, but
No, because you were playing in the wind ensemble too, unless you were able to do both.
oh, maybe okay. So then this is the year. Is this
See, this is what
2004?
happens when you get old,
Yeah,
brother.
I know everything's fun. You
Things
think
start
you'll
to
never
run
forget,
together.
but it gets all fuzzy. Is this 2004 or 2003?
Oh, four. Oh, four is when I started.
Okay, so I'm
Because
gonna do
you and Ben
I'm gonna
were
do
my
student
younger
teaching
line.
in the spring. That's not right. God, I don't. Is it a year? Or is it one semester? I can't even remember now. It's like so fuzzy. It has to have
Oh,
been. It must have been the full year. How would that have
yeah.
happened though? Okay. Anyway,
Yeah, because you also went to New York.
yeah. Are you sure it was in '03 that you came? You came in '04?
I'm pretty sure.
Are you sure you
Yeah.
started your masters when you started
There,
your masters?
there are, I don't remember numbers very well, ever. It's so un-Asian. I don't remember numbers very well. But the numbers that I do remember, and this is going to sound so lame, I remember when I graduated high school. Obviously, I remember birthdays of the important people in my life. High school, college, uh, almost every single major event during graduate school because that was so life altering. And then the birth years of my kids.
Yeah.
So like I can guarantee you,
You're like, I know what
2004
I'm
is
talking
when
about here.
I
Okay. Well then, yeah, you're right. I
Yeah,
definitely, I definitely remember going to New York. Um,
yeah.
but okay, that does make sense because one of the things that of many that I'll ever be forever grateful to Maestro Junkin for, who just we just celebrated his birthday yesterday, so happy belated to uh, Professor Junkin. I was taking grad school auditions at the time, and we were gonna perform at Carnegie, and I was also taking like I think my Eastman audition that weekend, and so I had to fly in, and basically he sent a car to come get me to bring me to the dress rehearsal. And at the time, I was like, "Oh, that's really nice of him." And then in hindsight, I'm like, "Oh, it's because he doesn't want the dummy undergrad to mess it up and then not be there for the sound check." Probably, and also looking out for the undergrad. I'm sure it's probably both cases. But
Well, I mean, we know him well enough to know that it's very nice of him,
yes,
and he's
absolutely,
looking out for the undergrad.
yeah, yeah, totally,
Because I mean, as in taking care of.
yes,
Uh, that's what he does. You would not have been in New York if you were a dummy undergrad. let's
yeah,
just let's
yeah,
just call it that.
yeah, yeah. That's true. But okay,
You had you you had passed.
yeah, I'd gotten through the into the room at least. So the context for I think trying to dress the part was I remember that particular phase that I was in. I was like really trying to figure it out, and being surrounded by so many other grad students who were so with it, as one of our professors, like Dr. Duke likes to say so often, it's like all the grad students at Texas at the time were super, super with it, you included. Although in your podcast, you say that maybe you didn't feel that way initially. I remember being like, okay, if I'm going to be in the same echelon as all these other guys, I need to like step up my game. And the other thing was I was getting ready to, or I was already student teaching, and I didn't have any like dress clothes. I was, like a schlubby undergrad. And so my brilliant plan was I was going to work a retail job around like the holiday season because they there's like an influx of hiring that happens, and so I got hired for seasonal work at the Banana Republic, made $10.50 an hour, which I remember at the time the other people were getting, they're like, man, we're making 1050. I was like, dude, I'm making like 2 or 3 times that teaching music lessons like 3 years ago. But that's fine, and you're getting the whole point was to work retail and then use that discount that we got and the money that I made from doing that to buy clothes for student teaching. And so that's why I was probably wearing slacks and dress shirts at the time. And
Yeah, all the time. It was great.
yeah.
It was, it was, I also remember I guess we had gone to, where were we? We were eating lunch outside somewhere, and you were talking about needing to go get your clothes at the cleaners. That's what you were doing. You were like, yeah, I
Suck my
gotta,
clothes to the clear. Who is this guy?
yeah. Well, that was my first thought. And it wasn't because I thought that was like real douchey or anything. I mean, it had nothing to do with that. It's like,
I just hate ironing, man. That's the problem. I hate ironing.
well, yeah, and you said that, but there was also something else that you said that stuck with me. And that was, and to this day, it
Wow.
has stuck with
Okay,
me.
I hope this is good.
You said, well, I can't stand ironing. I really hate it. It just takes a lot of time. And so what I have to do now is decide, how much is my time worth? Is it worth it for me to have more time and just pay someone to do the thing so that I can have this time for myself? If it is worth it to do that, then I'm going to do that.
It's pretty wise for undergrad.
Well, like I said, you didn't act like an undergrad. And no offense to any undergrads who are watching this right now.
as
We're not-
as the mentor of many undergrads, and as he bashes the
Yeah.
undergrads, he's like, "Let's go, guys, raise the game here. Come on."
No, it's just sort of stereotypically. But it just didn't fall in line with what I would have expected for someone of your age. Let's just say it that way.
All right.
But I do think about that a lot now.
Yeah.
It's like, how much is my time worth?
Yep.
And can I alter some things for that? And that was a lesson from you because of shirts.
Because of
Yeah.
iron.
I mean, I don't do dry cleaning because we have diapers to pay for.
Yeah.
And
That's
that
a
kind
real
of thing.
thing.
And that's where, like, when we were having that conversation, that's where my brain was. It was like, gosh, man, I'm just rubbing pennies together here, trying to make something happen as a poor graduate student.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy's sending off clothes to dry cleaning,
Well, you know what it is in that particular scenario, and you could also do what I just do now, which is don't wear dress shirts, just wear t-shirts every day. That's another way to save on dry cleaning. But at the time, it was like, okay, not to say that I never ironed, because I do sound like kind of a doofus in the story and say like, oh, I just don't want to iron, I'm just gonna send my clothes out. Like, I used to iron all my stuff. But if you're gonna break the iron out and you're gonna do it, like if you're gonna do it, then you better do it, right? Like, you don't want to. If it's wrinkly, and you're the guy that ironed it, then you got no one else to blame but you. So to do a shirt properly or to do a pair of slacks properly, it just takes time. And so that time could be spent practicing, which will get you the next gig, or that time could be spent teaching, which would give you more money to get lessons or supplies so that you can do the next thing. So yeah, it is that trading time for money kind of thing. So all right.
Yeah, look, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And if you can do it, why not?
Yeah.
Never knew that the reason you worked at Benepublic was just to have the discount.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
At the time,
Again,
I don't know if
way
it's
pants.
this anymore, but at the time, I remember like I'd gone there once or twice for something, right? And I never shopped there because it was like super out of my price range as an undergrad. And I remember I asked somebody, I was like, oh, like, what kind of discount do you guys get working here? And they're like, oh, we get 50% off. I was like, 50% off? Are you kidding? And that was what made me decide to apply there for the seasonal work. Fun epilogue to the story, because I want to talk about my first impression of Albert next, is after the season ended, like everything else I do, I start doing it. I'm like, okay, how do I take this all the way to the nth level, right? And so at the time, without going too far down the rabbit hole, my first day on the job, the boss or the manager at the time put me, of all departments, she put me in charge of women's shoes and jewelry. The first day, like I have first day job, I don't know what I'm doing. Hey, you're gonna be in the women's shoes and jewelry section. I'm like, why would you think that this is a good idea? So I'm like, okay. So I'm in there, and then lady walks in. Hey, can I try this in a seven? Sure. Walk in the back, and it's just like a mountain of shoe boxes, and I'm just awful. Like F minus for the first day of work. I can't find the shoe. I don't know where they are. They're kind of alphabetized, but not. The numbers aren't quite right, and it takes me like 15 minutes to find the shoe. I come out, she's gone. I'm like, okay, that was literally as bad as that interaction could have gone as my first day on the job. So the next day before I clock in, I come in an hour. This is so like funny to think back on. I haven't thought about this since it happened. I come in an hour before I'm slated to start working, so that I can go in the back and study where all the shoes are, and then reorganize the ones that weren't quite right from the previous day, so that I'm not slow the next time I need to find a pair of shoes for somebody. So the reason I mentioned this was I really got into it. I was like, okay, how good at this can I be? And I started reading books about, sales and, talking to people and how not to be slimy
Did
and
you read any
creepy.
Zig Ziglar books?
I did not read that yet at that time. The main book that influenced me at that time was a book called Minding the Store, by something Marcus. It was like, or Neiman. I can't remember which one it is now, but he's one of the founding members of Neiman Marcus, and he tells the story of,
Either Neiman or
yeah, it's
Marcus.
one of the guys, and I read his book, and I don't know which one of them wrote it, but a lot of that was talking about how he grew up maybe in the department store business, and how when you're selling something, it's not like you pushing your product on someone. It's like you trying to be of service to somebody. And if you have a good product and you're able to serve people, then the sales will occur naturally. And that was kind of the philosophy that I used while I was there. And so I ended up, this is not to be like, oh, I like really got into selling. I like ended up being like salesman of the month. And then they're like, we're going to make you the suit specialist. And then so I started learning about suits, and I was like reading books about suits and how they were hemmed and the different linings that you could use and the different types of wools and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so I got clothes for student teaching. That's
Look, man, I get it. I get it. My first job, and the job that I kept the longest outside of what I currently do, was being a team member at the Buckle.
What's the Buckle?
Yeah, it's like just this another retail store, clothing retail store, and I kept it because I love the discounts. That's what I did.
Which city is this?
I started that like it was in Fort Smith, Arkansas. Yeah, I started it my junior year in high school, and I kept it all the way through college
Wow.
because I would come back for seasonal help, and I would work in the summer, and it was great. It was the most consistent thing. I learned how to hem because of that job. Um, I learned how to talk to strangers because of that job. And the same concept. It's like I have major anxiety when it comes to talking to people that I don't know.
Now?
And still, yeah, dude, big time. This is fake. It takes a lot, and like that the scenes in the movies where the person talking to the mirror. Okay,
Go, go,
just
go,
say
go,
hello.
go, go.
That's my inner monologue a lot.
The reason I'm making a
No,
face is
seriously,
because
man. It's like
Albert is so personable that and as long as I've known Albert, that actually really surprised. I mean, I know Albert, so maybe I don't see that side of him as often. But even when I see you interacting with people, I would have never guessed that about you. That's the only reason why I'm going like, whoa, really? So wow.
Well, it if I don't have a real purpose to talk to someone, I become really nervous. That's what I discovered. right?
Makes sense.
And and that's what made it so hard when I was selling, because I didn't like selling. I didn't like pushing things on people and imposing on their time, because most people need your help. Not right then, not when you approach them.
Exactly.
That's not when.
Yep.
Eventually they may,
Mm-hmm.
but I also didn't like to hover between the racks and wait for the signal that it was just all weird. And so it got to a point where honestly, I was like, I just want to figure out who they are.
Uh-huh.
What do you do?
Yep.
What are you? What are you into? And then eventually I developed a clientele, and it was crazy. But that's kind of how it is now too. It's like my intentions now when I talk to a stranger is to hope to learn something about them.
Mm-hmm.
Then it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
um, yeah, but it is. It's still very hard. Ultimately, I think I always want to be an extrovert, so it's easy for me to as I've gotten old, to play the part, to be an extrovert, but like it's intentional.
Mm.
Um, but it's draining,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Like Sunday mornings where there's no football game, or you've just had the longest day at a football stadium, and you get up and sit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is my most comfortable state. Sitting, coffee, morning, speaking to no one.
So I think we're similar in this sense, and I feel like I've met more people like this in past years, where you're an extroverted introvert. You can be extroverted, but your natural resting state is actually to be introverted and not feel the need to talk to people or be around people.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know what those initials are.
Right, right, right.
IMFP,
Yeah,
blah blah. When you take those
yeah.
tests. Yeah, I did. Yeah, and it's funny how I rem- I always had a hard time with those tests because I didn't know if I was taking those tests and answering them truly
Yeah.
as
Oh. Uh
myself,
huh.
or if I was answering them as my projected self, who I want to be.
Yeah. Oh, it's getting very meta.
Um, yeah, I know, right? And then I realized I was probably projecting. And now I realize that consistently I am more on the introverted side of the spectrum. And I know that it takes effort for me to step out and expend that kind of energy. But as an educator, as a musician, as a performer, it's the job, it's the reason.
Mm-hmm.
So sure, why not?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I do.
Yep.
And so it makes it a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't think we were gonna head down this road.
Yeah. And to everyone who might be catching this afterwards, this is kind of the fun parts of like when Albert and I hang out. Like we'll start talking about one thing, and then 20 minutes into it, we're like, "Whoa, we're like over here now." And so, we're not doing this with the intentions of monetizing and creating sponsored posts. And thanks for the sponsored posts today. This episode brought to you by Squarespace. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
not sponsored by
that.
Squarespace, but it's just a way for us to maybe document our hangs. And one thing we talked about last time in one of our off-air hangs was, when I shoot video now, sometimes it's like, it's not the shooting of the video and the editing and then the posting of it in that moment that is when I enjoy it the most. It's when I see the video 2, 3, 5, 10 years later. You're like, whoa, you remember that time Alfred and I did this thing? I mean, I experienced this when I did the podcast, because there were times where this past couple years when I'd be traveling, and this sounds kind of weird. I don't think I've said this out loud yet, but there were times.
Ooh, juicy bits.
Okay.
Here we go.
There were times where I would like think of something, and then I would play old episodes of the podcast. For example, like the one we did together, and I would be listening to it, and it felt like we were hanging out even though I might be on the other side of the world in a taxi by myself.
Mm.
It's just like the little like time emotion capsule that's just there that you could just kind of reach out and like tap into it for a second, and then you feel re-energized again, and then you go about your day as it is. So I look forward to seeing this in 10 years from now when my mustache is like down to the ground.
Yeah, well, uh, this it is a journal in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Video
Yeah,
journal of our six hangs
definitely. It's
during 2020
uh,
Zoomtopia COVID mania of 2020. So
yeah, right.
all right, I have to get to
Well,
my
that's right because
Albert
oh,
story. Sorry to
oh
cut you
yes.
off.
Well, I'm
We've already
purposefully
blown our
delayed.
30-minute mark at this point, but
Oh, have I
we're
really?
gonna keep.
Sorry.
That's okay. I like how we said 30 minutes as if we could actually adhere to the 30 minutes. I think we both
No.
knew that wasn't going to happen, but
Well, that was just going to give us short range. So that just means that we shouldn't go over an hour.
yeah, okay. So my Albert story, um, I'm trying to see what other perspectives I can offer on this because I feel like I recounted it in our podcast. Um, okay, I'll tell the story again for the people for which is the majority of people who haven't heard the story, but then I'll also tie it back to what you said earlier about us becoming fast friends. So I'm a junior, I guess, at the time, or maybe I'm a senior. God, how do I not remember what is happening timelines wise in my own life at this time? Anyway, I'm playing in the wind ensemble, and if you are applying to be a conducting student at a university for grad student, you have to come in and then actually conduct the wind ensemble as part of your audition. Which, if you don't conduct, or even if you are a conductor, the thought of standing in front of the University of Texas wind ensemble might be a little nerve wracking.
Slightly.
Yeah, slightly.
Yeah, slightly to say the least.
Okay, so we're there. We're playing. Is it the first movement, Symphonic Metamorphosis, Hindemith?
And Flat Symphony first movement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, and I remember
No, the B flat
B
symphony.
flat. Oh, thanks. And
Yeah.
I'm playing bass drum. I remember that, and I remember there are three or four applicants in the morning. I I should know this now because you recounted it for me in our podcast episode. But again, this is what happens when you get older. Anyway, so we're playing. I'm when you play the same part over and over again, it kind of you just do it. And what I say in the episode is I remember Albert walking in, and immediately, if you know Albert, this is not a surprise to you, but he gets up there and immediately, like, instead of just going into it, he takes a second to stop and say hello to the ensemble, which was kind of like, oh, that's cool. And do you mind me putting you on the spot, Albert? Can you tell everyone what you said when you got up there?
I probably said something along the lines of hi, and, and I may have said that I'm the only Asian band director in Arkansas,
I think it's something to that
something
effect. Yeah.
along the lines of
Yeah.
that, and that I'm just happy to be here and let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there was something at the very end that was like, okay, let's go. And then you put your hands up, and I was like, okay. And there was something about, like, I already knew something was going to happen because at that point, everyone, we had maybe played it a couple times. And like when it's time to play, there's like that it's time to play. And instead of everyone just being like, okay, here we go, and sitting up and playing, like you went like this. And when you went like that, everyone kind of like, we're like, okay, yeah, we're going to do it. And as a side note, what happened was when you stopped and said hi to us before we started playing, it shows you the power of first impressions. Within maybe 20 seconds, Albert basically won the entire ensemble over. Um, I thought, I was like, oh, this guy's seems like a nice guy. He's funny. He seems cool. And collectively as an ensemble, and I can't speak for everybody, but it felt like everybody wanted to play well for you. And I just remember your audition being like, whoa, who is this guy? I don't know who he is, but he should probably be one of the guys next year. That was awesome. It was really fun. That's the other thing I remember about that. It was fun to play that particular rep of the piece. So
Yeah. Well, I conducted it like a guy who had nothing left to lose. Because I mean, I'll be honest with you, man. I was already, I'd got turned down for one position,
Mm, I didn't know that.
and so that was like a measure. I was like, well, okay, well that's, I guess I'm not ready for graduate school, you know. And then I lived with the Hennepin score for the next month. And then when I stepped in front of the wind ensemble, I was like, this is going to be the best group I ever get to conduct ever in my entire life, and I'm just going to have a ball doing it. And that's those were the thoughts.
Yeah.
And so, you know,
What did it feel like? I mean, like even now, I've spent a fair share of time standing on a podium at this point, and I would never say like I'm a conductor, like the way that Albert's a conductor. But like with any ensemble, when you get on a podium, kind of cold, it's a little bit. Is it nerves? Is it and the power dynamic is important too. Like if you're clinicking an all-state band, you're clearly there to help and make it fun for the students. But if you're like coming into an establishment like the UT Wind Ensemble and you're coming in, what does
yeah.
that feel like?
Well, two things. The first is out of respect for the ensemble, regardless of level, my preparation has got to be like spot on. And it has a lot to it's because of the ensemble and their time and then reference to the music. So it's not about me. It's not about how I feel. I may be nervous,
Mm-hmm.
like getting there, like nervous about whether or not it's going to happen or whether or not I'll make mistakes. But like, but the moment, I don't know how to explain it, but the moment I'm on the box and the hands come out and it's time to do it, it's just about the music and making sure that happens. And so then there's no room because that part is just there's no room for or you, you know, us is all that you've got.
Mm, mm.
And so that sounds, I don't know, I don't know if that sounds silly or not, but I mean that's how I think about it. Um, like I had the opportunity to conduct um, the Memphis Symphony twice, and it was just for like a leadership seminar, you know, and I their conductor couldn't do it, and then they needed someone to do it, and they called me and they said, "Hey, do you want to do this? It's you'll need to come to a rehearsal, and then you'll conduct the piece, and then you'll give a little bit of a lecture." All of that. And like I didn't even care. Yes, I'll do it because it's the Memphis Symphony. I didn't even know what rep was. Yes, I'll do it. I mean, I was just like, yeah. And then they're like, it's Beethoven 7. Yes, I'll definitely do it. You
I
know,
could totally,
never
I could
conducted
hear
that
all of
before
that
in
inner
my life.
monologue coming out of you, by the way.
I mean, yeah. I've never been more uncomfortable preparing for something.
Uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable. Yeah.
Wow.
It's like, you know, I don't conduct orchestras, I
Yeah.
conduct bands. But I
Yeah.
mean, again, it's just music.
Yeah.
You know, I figure out everything I can figure out about it. And what I don't know, I ask people. And they're musicians, and it's the podium, it's the baton, it's the score, it's all the same, you know. And I did have to get help. I did reach out to friends and colleagues to help me with a few things here, but it's not like I needed to teach the piece to them. They knew it. I just needed to conduct with a musical vision,
Mm.
and that's that's what I did. But it was not stepping on the box was very similar, if not identical, to stepping on the box with the UT Wind Ensemble for the first time in my
Yeah.
audition.
Yeah.
It was, you know, I might not ever get this shot again. So I sound like Hamilton. So I'm not going to blow it. I mean, like literally, that was the thought. It was like it may never happen again, and if I don't go in guns blazing, then I've just wasted it. and I wasn't willing to do that, you know. And it turned out great, and they asked me to come back, and so that was fine, and it was gosh, it was just so much fun, you know. And you can tell when the group is into it
Mm-hmm.
because then they give back more, and
Mm-hmm.
then you give more, and that's how it also felt with the audition. You know, I was teaching high school band and working with the high school band. I was building a program, and I love those musicians, and we worked really hard to do the things that we do. But the amount of give versus receive was really disproportionate. And a lot of it may have been how I taught them, it may have been where they are, but it wasn't the same at Texas. I gave, and almost more came back. Probably more came back.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't anything that I'd experienced before. So, like, the entire time in that very first run, it was like, wow, I am swimming in it, and they're with me, and it's going, and it was awesome. And then I remember Professor Junkin stopping and saying, will you rehearse from X to X? And I was like, yes, heck yeah, I'll do it again. So yeah, it was great. Yeah, I've got the tape. I haven't watched it. I
Oh,
should go back and watch it
we
someday.
should watch it one of these live episodes. We'll do a reaction.
Oh my God, I don't know.
And we'll bring in Professor Junkin and ask him to provide commentary on top of it. This is what Albert was before he worked with me, and then this is what he is now that he's Doctor.
Hey, hasn't gotten any
Doctor.
better.
Oh
Oh,
man! All right.
well, you're too nice to say all those wonderful things about me.
Oh,
Thank you.
it's easy. It's don't even have to try. I will say
Yeah.
if I can connect it back to your original thread, which was like I felt like we clicked very quickly when we became friends. I remember now looking back, I don't even know how we got there, but I remember one particular bike ride that we went on together, and we were riding some trail at the time, and I like it was some. You are like a biker, and I'm like, oh, I have a bike, and you're like, let's go, and we were riding and riding, and we were going down some like pretty steep. I don't know if you remember this. We went down like this really steep trail, and I hit the bottom, and my front wheel gave out,
Hmm.
and you were ahead of me, and you stopped and you came back. You're like, yeah, no problem. Open it back. You break out the tube. You're like fixing it in like 3 minutes, and I'm like watching you do. I'm like, who is this guy? and, and you fix it. And I was like, oh man, thanks a lot. I'll hit you back when we get over there, and you loaned me a pair of gloves too. You're like, you're gonna need some gloves. Do you have gloves? I was like, I don't have gloves. Have a bike. And I was like, oh, I'll get you back for the tube and those gloves. You're like, oh no sweat, man. Like I've got these new gloves here. Just hang on to those gloves, and don't worry about the tube. It's fine. I got extras. I was like, Albert is so nice. So not that you were just the guy that was fixing bikes for me, but I just remember that you were always just like a super super nice guy, which is
Hey, man, that's
yeah.
it's much easier to be remembered that way, isn't it?
Hopefully, right? That's the goal.
And that's okay. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Like, if the worst thing that anyone could ever say is that I'm too nice, I'm
Yeah.
fine.
Better to slide the scale over from there
Yeah.
than the other way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's I, I mean, student evaluations have been that way, you know. Dr. Nguyen is just so nice, and too
Mm.
nice, or and I mean, that means, and as I evolved as a teacher, and have grown to be comfortable with who I am, not try to be someone else
Mm.
to please other people.
Yeah.
That has those happen less. And I think that the whole too nice comment, I can also take from it, not that I wasn't disciplining or being providing enough discipline. It was maybe not being strong enough in what I wanted to see happen, you know.
Hmm.
So too nice is pretty easy. You just step back and let it happen. Just let it happen. Yeah. But you get older and you're more comfortable in your own convictions, and then it's okay. Yeah. But that's a whole nother conversation.
I think that's the perfect ending to episode number one. We're at
Yeah.
the 50-minute mark now, so this actually, I think is gonna
Wow.
be good, man. I got a good feeling about this. If nothing else, it'll be a good
Me
excuse to
too.
hang out together once a week. Um,
Yeah.
but we need a couple call to actions here. The first one is, not that we're gonna, we have to design the T-shirts. What's the merch gonna look like for this show? No, I'm kidding. But we do need to talk about. We were joking around
So
about.
what are we going to talk about?
Yeah, next week we'll have a topic. That do we spring it on each other the day of, or do we text about it during the week? We'll have a topic
No,
for next.
well, let's just text him
Yeah.
about it. Well, I mean, it's actually we were supposed to take turns. I picked
Oh,
I
I
picked this
see. I
one.
see what you're doing here. You're putting the pressure on me. You're like, let's go, carry the weight.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, no, I did pick
Yeah,
this
you're
one.
right. You did.
But
You did.
but we can't go back and
Yeah.
forth.
Okay. I will come
You
up with
know.
a topic for us for next week, and I'll run it by you beforehand. And
Sure.
title the show. Maybe if you're catching this, probably in the replay. There's 4 people in the room watching us right now, and thank you everyone who is tuning in.
Yay!
Ganatra
Hello
says
to
was a
4 people.
fun time. Hey, thanks a lot coming on YouTube. Thanks for watching. If you're catching this in the replay and you made it 50 minutes into the episode, congratulations. Thank you very much
Wow.
for hanging out with us. And send us a note and let us know if you enjoyed it. If we should do more of these episodes, we're going to do more either way. We're going to do 5 more at
Yeah.
least.
We're at least
Yeah.
5 more.
And the title for the show, what was your title? You texted me something this morning. Uh, and then I text. Did you see
Oh
my last
gosh.
text right before we started?
Yeah, what was it? Hang on, let me pull it up. Yeah, I did. I thought that was good too.
Tell everyone
Um,
yours.
my title was, and, and I guess people have to understand the play on our
Yes.
names,
Yeah.
because when you
It
see
doesn't
it,
make any
it
sense
doesn't
if you
make
can't
sense.
read either of our names, which
Yeah.
95% of the population
Uh,
won't be able.
right. So thinking about how like loose everything was going to be with our
Uh-huh.
topics, I was gonna thought that the title win
When Albert's last name.
we go way unplugged.
When unplugged.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely
I also like yours though.
uh,
I thought that was cool.
mine came to me while I was post walk this evening and then jumping in the shower right before we got on. When, which is spelled Nguyen, I wrote where there's a when, there's a way. You kind of opened the this can of worms. Usually, as a guy with the name Huei, you've heard every variation, every joke under the sun, but you kind of led us down this path, so that's fine. Well, if you have a good title for the episode and you happen to be watching it, drop it in the comments below if you have a topic that you would
Yeah.
like us. Ganatra's laughing. Thank you, Ganatra. We have one person who thinks it's funny along with the two of us, so
I
that's
know,
3
right? We
people who
could
think
find a
it's funny.
Vietnamese friend named Huy. And then
And
we
we
have
need to,
Nguyen
and then we need to
Huy.
open a pho shop.
Yeah.
We win way.
Oh boy.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll need a show title. We need if you have topics of things that you'd like Albert and I to talk about, you can send us a message. And other than that, we will see everybody next week. Anything else, Albert?
Thanks for listening. We're hanging out. We'll see what happens.
All right. Bye, everyone. Have a good night. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.